The problem now is moving a little bit in the sense that now we're mainstream. It's not about just making more rectangles and more modules. I want to make fewer modules, but get the same gigawatt output, right? Get more output on a roof, get more output in the field, do it in a sustainable way, do it in an ethical way, doing it with quality product. And that's really what Meyer Burger is all about.
Hey, welcome back, Solar Warriors. I just want to say thank you for the one thing that you've decided to invest today that you don't get back. It's the non-renewable resource known as time. I promise both your time and attention are well directed. You are going to get a return for that investment here on Suncast. Today's expert guide is running one of those companies that I all too often find people don't know that they know about. They don't realize the impact that a company like Meyer Burger has had in its 70-year legacy of building the solar industry and building the factories that build the panels that we put on everyone's roofs to, in fact, take this energy transition to the next level. So I've had the chance over the last few months to get to know Ardes Johnson. And not only do I respect him for carrying the name Johnson in such a brave and established manner, but he truly is an entrepreneur, an intrapreneur, an energy executive in the true sense of the word. And today's conversation with Ardes is going to dig into the history of solar modules in the United States, the evolution of our industry, and what the current state of the union, so to speak, of manufacturing domestically and abroad has to take into consideration, the inputs and the outputs, how we all work together toward a common goal. If you like conversations like this, where we get deep inside the minds of the leaders on the front lines of the clean energy transition, my friend, you are in the right place, because we have over 650 conversations like this, folks that are building the companies that are changing the way the world works. Ardes is one of them. So get ready to tune up your skills, Solar Warrior, as we dig into another powerful conversation here on Suncast. Well, Ardes, I hope that folks have had a chance to watch some of the stuff that we produced with you guys in Vegas. We'll link to that 12-minute clip that I thought was fantastic. Today, we get to dig deeper into the work that you've done, the life that you've created, and the work environment that you and culture that you are fostering at the brand behind the brand, Meyer Burger. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and for all of our cousins out there, the Johnson family. Thank you for the call out for the name. No, this is absolutely great opportunity to be with here.
Absolutely. We're part of two tribes, That's very right. important tribes. Well, as many know, I'm a quote collector. Zig Ziglar is one of those that I just love. And today's quote, as we kick it off, is: "You cannot consistently perform in a manner which is inconsistent with the way that you see yourself."
Pretty deep thoughts, and I tell you, from my perspective, you do a lot of introspective consideration of who you are and where you're going, what's the path, and you're often looking back at your rudder and trying to get it lined out, especially in this industry. I like that, the Zig Ziglar quotes are always great because they're business quotes. They make you focus just from the character of that person. It really is interesting. Right now I would be more in the arena of more of a Mike Tyson quote. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
That's right.
Because that's what we often feel like over the past few months and years, and this solar coaster that we live in.
I love it. That is a classic one. I feel like that Tyson quote goes down as like one of the pinnacle quotes, like Gretzky, skating to the puck, that will be quoted for decades, if not centuries. So, yeah. Well, in the way that Gretzky and Tyson changed the game, they had a mission that they were on. I've learned that Meyer Burger and you as an individual are on a mission. At the core of every mission is sort of a problem statement, if you will. Could you describe for us the problem at a macro level that you feel Meyer Burger was created to solve?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I've been in the industry around the industry for over a decade now. And it's the problem in and of itself has changed a little bit over time in terms of how you approach it. But really it's how do we bring more renewable energy to the masses, right? And how do we make it happen? If you were looking back 10 years ago, it was all about getting the individual costs down below a certain threshold. And that time it was cheaper than coal, right? All eyes to that. And the problem now is moving a little bit in the sense that now we're mainstream. We've moved out of the niche market, and now solar's become an asset for power generators, even and down all the way down to the homeowners, that it's something that they absolutely want. And now we look up and we went from 2 gigawatts to 10 gigawatts, 15, 20, 30. Now we're talking 40 gigawatts. And the problem is how are we going to get all that? How are we going to make all of that? Where are we going to get it from? That time when we needed to get power below coal, and that attitude was really, how do we scale? And we leaned to our colleagues over in Asia to create that scale. And now we look up today, and the problem is, how do we get to 40 gigawatts without dependence on essentially one country to deliver all of that product? We don't do that in any industry that I know of. And this is one that is very important to me, of course, but I think it's important to us from the sustainability, the climate, but also from energy security and other things. So the problem we see it as Meyer Burger is really, how do we get that and diversify and allow not only the US, but Europe and India and the whole world to scale to a place that was unthought of, unheard of, a few years ago.
I mentioned earlier a phrase that you and Michelle and the broader Meyer Burger team have been utilizing a lot lately, the brand behind the brand. And it's true. Not a lot of folks really do understand who Meyer Burger is, and the fact that it's a 70-year old company that has brought a lot of innovation to the industry. So would you introduce us to Meyer Burger and why specifically it's solving the problem you've just enunciated?
Yeah. So Meyer Burger, and for people who don't know, we are a publicly traded Swiss company with manufacturing in Europe and soon to be here in the US. We are at our core a technology company. 70 years in the business of being a company, 40 years in the business of solar, essentially. Mm-hmm. And in between there, we started in the semiconductor space. So we were at that time developing technologies for the future, always trying to be, what's the next step? What's the next step? And that's really what we are at our core. And we know that from that perspective, you've got to get to a certain place over time that allows the systems that you produce to do enough to become mainstream. Mm-hmm. And if you walk any of our, as you said, we're the brand behind the brand, gigawatts and gigawatts, 70 plus gigawatts a year pass through technology that Meyer Burger has or developed. Mm-hmm. And we are very proud of that in the sense that we are able to reflect on what was and what is to be. But the truth of the matter is, we're a company from an RD roots that says, okay, that's great, but what have you done for me now? So we continue to develop the technologies for tomorrow. We just happen to now self-consume those technologies at the current time. We've gone to making our own tools for ourselves. You walk our lines in Germany, you walk our cell lines, 90% of the product is coming off of a Meyer Burger tool. And we are proud of that. And quite frankly, we feel that there needs to be that kind of driver in order to meet what is going to be how do I get to the 30, 40 gigawatts? Because it's not about just making more rectangles and more modules. I want to make fewer modules, but get the same gigawatt output, right? That's ultimately what we're trying to do. Get more output on a roof, get more output in the field, do it in a sustainable way, do it in an ethical way, doing it with quality product. And that's really what Meyer Burger is all about.
How far upstream does Meyer Burger go? For those who are just not sure if they are fully understanding what it is that you do, Meyer Burger makes the manufacturing lines that other solar module manufacturers for decades have relied on to take what they've done in the factory, cell improvements up to 25, 28% efficiency, and be able to duplicate that success, not in a clean room, but in a factory. Can you talk a bit more about kind of the breadth of product and delivery up to the solar panel that Meyer Burger has traditionally been known for?
We first got into the solar industry by doing the metrology, the measuring. Poisson is a company of ours. They do the flasher technology. So when people think about, the module comes off, You flash it and get the power. That's us. That's our company. And so we're very familiar with that from that perspective. And we've also, of course, developed the cell technologies as well, and the tools from the passivation tools and on down the line, and all the mono PERC technology that's more common today. We have that's our skill set and our tool set. So, but even before that, we've got history in the wafer business. We've got a lot of people, a lot of history there from the diamond wire saw business that we used to own, and for sure, we're very familiar with that business and the wafer business. And we have people within our company that still are very strong in their knowledge base of that, even though we're not at this moment in that business. But it's pretty interesting because of other things that are going on in the U.S., the potential. There are a lot of folks who want to put in a wafer business here. And I like to tell people it's heavy capital investment, not terribly difficult, but little mistakes can cost you a lot of money. But then, from our perspective, we're trying to work together with a lot of those to see how we can pull in our experience and see if it can support it. Plus, we have a vested interest in that. We want to have wafers. We want to have supply of wafer. Of course, we'd love to have it from the United States. And, our customers, of course, would like to have that too, if possible. But they also understand that there's gives and takes, and we're just working through that. If you look at us today, what our complete focus is today really is the technology development and the tool set development and the manufacturing of solar cells, our heterojunction solar cells, combined with our SmartWire technology for our moduling. That's kind of what we do. We do those two big pieces, cell and module. And that's what we have in Germany and soon to be in the US.
I know this is different based on the way that things are, each individual user's sort of setup or what they're solving for. But is there a way to baseline for the average Joe? If I'm asking you this question at a coffee shop, like just trying to figure out how this industry works as a VC or whatever, is there a way to baseline the per X cost to stand up a manufacturing facility, like per line, per gigawatt? How would one think about that? So what I want to do is give folks the ability, as we unpack this conversation, to understand the scale of investment required just to stand up one line of manufacturing, let alone a whole manufacturing plant.
Sometimes it's technology driven a little bit that determines it, and determines whether or not you're talking about a cell line or a module line. For us, I think a good estimate is, you've got facility, you've got everything required to get it done. You're not just buying a bunch of tools and now you've got your toys. You got to put the Legos together, as they say. I would say, the way that we kind of articulate is a couple $100 million per gigawatt on the cell, probably half that or so, give or take, for the module. That's how you would, that's a good thumb rule for that. And most people like to talk about that 100 million per gigawatt. It would be arguable that there's a small amount of premium over a common PERC line today versus the next line technologies, whether it be heterojunction or TOPCon for sure. But we think it's well worth the investment for sure in terms of the ROI. But yeah, when people say, what does that look like? When you're talking about a gigawatt facility, you just throw 100 million out there, a cell line, 200 million, somewhere in that range. So someone's going to say, hey, look, I'm putting in 5 to 10 gigawatts. They're putting in $1 billion, right? For sure.
That's what I'm trying to understand. What that scale looks like, especially if they're doing it at the cell level, right? Because you're already easily, even if they have better, somehow lower pricing or cost stack, it's $250,000 per line if you're doing cell plus module.
Yes.
And almost everyone's going at least 4 gigawatts, right? I mean, at this point.
Yeah. You have to hit a scale. And that's the important part about it is you recognize, and for us, our traditionally, we kind of looked at it from a hub and spoke model, that you would put 10 gigawatts of cell in one place and put the moduling in strategic locations throughout the world for a lot of different reasons, not the least of which is the sustainability of shipping, multiple products across the world. And you need to get scale on a gigawatt, multi-gigawatt scale for cell. And we're looking at that obviously here in the U.S. and how far we can go. And Gunter Erfurt, our CEO, said a few things, and we're exploring to this point even another 3 gigawatt expansion ourselves.
If folks are trying to understand the taxonomy where Meyer Burger as a company fits. So if I say it's the Intel inside, well, folks can wrap their head around like there's AMD and there's Intel. There's like maybe 3 or 4 chip manufacturers that compete with Intel, right? Now with AI, it's kind of like NVIDIA and everyone else.
Right.
What is that? Can you give any picture? It could be just in terms of numbers, like there's 2 or 3 more, or like nobody else is from Europe, or how does that taxonomy work?
Yeah, well, when you think about it from that perspective, it's more like you're kind of looking at things in the terms of even back in the VHS days. Was it VHS or beta? Which direction are you going to go? But I would like to say for us, we've got a ton of experience in the technology that we're utilizing. It's the technology that we picked for a reason. There are reasons why we did that. But
and that's the heterojunction technology.
The heterojunction technology, right? There are many people who are seeing it as a future technology, but the reality is it's not a new technology. It's been around for over a decade. It started in the HIT modules with Sanyo, then became Panasonic, and then when it became off IP, then we got a hold of it and really put on steroids, as they like to say, and we've got a lot of IP in that technology, heterojunction, and the capability ingrained with our SmartWire capabilities, which really allow us to be able to do more with it. But yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're talking about. What are my options? Another U.S. manufacturer or another European manufacturer? In Europe, it's pretty tight. It's pretty tough. It's a tough market overall. There's a lot of people talking, but they've got a lot of actions still required, I think, at the broader level, on the policy side, that are going to help to support it. But we went for it. We're going for it. And we believe it. And the truth of the matter is we have always said that the U.S. is a strategic market for us. Now it's become a very strategic market, not only from a supplying product, but also making product as well. And there's a few players out here. There's a lot of people saying that they're bringing cell and module to the U.S. There's a few that I know for sure will do it, and the others I'm going to see it when I believe it when I see it, so to speak.
Good news is a few of them are customers, so we'll
yes.
get into the dynamic of that in the sort of latter part of this conversation.
Sure.
But when you think about, when I worked at Trina, was very familiar with Meyer Burger because Trina's a customer. And I remember the first time somebody said, yeah, that Meyer Burger module. And I was like, wait, sorry, come again? Meyer Burger, what? What needed to be true for that forward integration to happen?
I would like to say that it was just something that was, a planned evolution of the company. But the reality is that from that 2010-12 range, and when we said we need to scale, and quite frankly, companies like Trina and others were ready to ring that bell and support the global market for scaling. At the end of the day, over the decade, the number of customers available to the tool manufacturer Meyer Burger, right, that aperture continued to close and close and close and close until finally, the last of the U.S. guys were kind of, at least from a cell perspective, of course, were kind of shutting down. And then next thing you know, from a heterojunction technology and that technology pivot, which, we've been at it for a decade almost, in terms of developing that technology. It came down to one client, if you want to call it that, said we want it. And that one client was China, right? They said, so there was a lot of demand for that. Meyer Burger has some history, not great history, in dealing with selling tools to China. And so at that moment, there was a pivot point in our company. And that pivot point, ultimately, we went to our shareholders and we had, hey, here's our strategy. This is what we're going to do. They accepted that strategy and invested in us. And now we've decided to pivot. And quite frankly, we really believe that this was the best path for us. And we're excited about it because it allows us to continue to develop technology. And it also allows us to develop very interesting partnerships. But now we come at it from both sides. We're developing the technology. We're also developing the modules, and we can approach it a little bit differently. So we're very interested in that. But that it was a necessity thing. And you look at it, all the value chain within solar, as you know, for sure. There's somewhere the 98+% available here type of thing is what we were dealing with, and we decided to give it a shot to say we'll do it ourselves.
I want to touch a bit on the HJT technology because we've done some interviews featuring how N-Type TopCon is replacing PERC in the marketplace, and I feel that there's always that module that's on the fringe, and people are waiting for that next evolution. And so it's fun to see how this technology that I believed in back when I first started my first solar company, 2006. I was buying Sanyo HIT modules. I was selling unisolar modules. I was just looking at how do we maximize. It didn't make sense to me that we weren't harvesting. We didn't have bifacial in the United States. We had it elsewhere. Mm-hmm. We weren't harvesting back panel, or the back of panel light reflected off the roof. I was working for a roofing company that was installing a lot of white vinyl roof, and I was watching Solyndra and others start to sort of catch up on this thing, and realizing, wow, Sanyo is way ahead of its time. And as a result, the tooling and the market sort of downward pressure on silicon is not going to allow this to succeed. You pointed out that Panasonic picked it up and sort of tried to run with it. Talk to me about the decision to go with HJT at a corporate level, and how you inside of Meyer Burger take the innovation and the R&D of what you've been doing and integrate it into this product that the market wants, that it's proven technology. And now it's like I look at it and it's like, I'm gonna let you answer the question in a second, but it's like everybody knew that the Pringles can was the best way to package chips to keep them from breaking. Right? Now you look around and literally like every manufacturer, including Doritos, now makes a Pringles style can. Why? Because the IP expired, right? And so we were all just sort of waiting around to see who's going to carry the torch. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, well, you brought up the great point. At the time when these technologies were starting to evolve, it was about the time that the markets really started collapsing in terms of the value happened there, and a lot of people got upside down, so to speak. But the reality is, from our perspective, Sanyo had that technology. It was invented. It was well ahead of its time. Totally agreed with that. And then we picked it up and we advanced it. We've looked at what we believe not only can get us where we are today, but has the natural way to get us to tomorrow. And that's why we feel that the heterojunction technology is supremely fitted to support the future technologies. For us, we've already announced the IBC modules that we are developing, and the cells that we're developing in the factory, and we're going to be launching that.
What does that mean? What's IBC?
The interdigitized back contact, the SunPower type
right?
technology.
Yep.
So
you're integrating now the SunPower technology that also is like, okay.
Yeah. We've publicly told people that we're doing that, and we're moving forward. And we, I don't want to speak too greatly about where we'll start off, but we're definitely thinking in the 24-25% range is easy to get there. And
yeah,
we've also shown an interesting little thing that we've shown is we've had it in the labs for a long time, years, and we're seeing no degradation, or very little to no degradation at all. And so very interested in what that's going to look like over time. And so that's the heterojunctions for that, right? And quite frankly, if you were starting from in my mind, if you're starting from greenfield, if you're starting from zero, there's a little bit more investment, but it's really what you want to go for because it's the best thing. TopCon is a continuation of the existing technology that's there today, PERC. And it's definitely got some advancements to it, and it's going to get it closer to heterojunction. But I think a lot of the big driver for that is because of the infrastructure that's already there.
A lot of folks talk about the utilization of existing infrastructure for oil and gas, and the resistance in oil and gas to move into to abandon that infrastructure they've spent all this time building because there's still useful life of it, right? Mm-hmm. It's these stranded assets, and there's a lot that has been invested and subsidized to build the infrastructure that need that these. I mean, the all of that is borne on the backs of tax dollars, taxpayers in all these countries, not just the U.S. and China, right?
That's right. That's right.
You announced as well that you have a framework agreement with D.E. Shaw. I just want to touch on these 2 points, the HOT and D.E. Shaw, because I think they underscore the ability Or really the technology and the requirement to seed that technology with a customer as prerequisites for being able to come to market the way that you have. Can you talk a bit about that agreement?
I will say this. We stepped into the market. We started speaking with partners, potential partners, and of course we're still speaking to them now, and we have others as well. We publicly talked about BayWa. We're definitely partnering with BayWa on the project, BayWa Reed project side of the business, as well as Inca, the parent company for IKEA. We're partnering with them, but the reality is, D. Shaw or DESRI, D. Shaw Renewable Investments Group, the DESRI group in particular, who's focused on this. The leadership within that organization is top notch, bar none. They are visionaries in my mind. They understand the marketplace. They come from other industries within the energy, so they understand thermal and they understand how, from that perspective, with or without us, they understand how to drive the development of power generation within the U.S. And what was interesting to see is, to be honest, our first conversations centered around the fact that we had announced we were making modules, and their technology team, their technology leadership, all they could talk about is, we go to factories all over the world and we see your machines everywhere we go, right?
Yeah.
And so they felt that you guys can do this. You know what you're doing, and we're aggressively make sure that we support all of our partners and really got their input, to be honest with you, on where we're going and how we're getting there. It was that right time. It was that interesting place in the solar history, if you might say, not traditional, of how you start the market in terms of utility scale. A little bit of security, diversification, of course, and the fact that we really believe that we provide the lowest levelized cost of energy with our technology. And it takes customers to also understand and see that. And quite frankly, it's out of their comfort zone. And DESRI, the D. Shaw team, is one of those who are willing to step out, and their technical teams and their partners on the technical side are definitely world-class, top-notch, and they hold us to account. And then that's what we want. We want partners who are free with us, and they come to Europe, we come here, we talk openly. They've supported us. They supported us not only on the module side when we announced our agreement, but when we had the opportunity for the cell piece too, and we can talk about that. But that was they were with us. In fact, their leadership went with us, and we met with the governor, and so it was a great time. So I like to think of them as not just a customer, but they truly are. They are all of our guys. All of our customers are these utility scale customers are truly partners of ours.
So the agreement with D.E. Shaw, for those who are unfamiliar, announced back last year, I think, right?
Yep.
October, about a year ago, is somewhere between 4 and 5 gigawatts of commitment. And how much did you feel like you needed to secure before you could confidently say, okay, let's open a factory here in Americas?
That's a tough question. We always said we were coming to the U.S., so that was never. Okay. We had announced that before, to be honest with you. I will tell you this. We looked at a factory that could fit. Well, at the time, we looked at a factory that we think we can get a gigawatt in there. And then it says we could squeeze a gigawatt and a half. And finally, our operations team and our project management team, who are world-class again, on our side of the ledger, said we can get 2 gigawatts out of a plant. So, but the reality is, we had said we're coming to the U.S., and that was not an unknown thing. But we talked about 500 megawatts, our first line. So the facility was big enough. But what DESRI allowed us to do, and quite frankly, at the time we announced the DESRI deal, is when the Inflation Reduction Act hit as well. So it kind of this perfect storm, and we put the hammer down and said we're going to go full tilt. We're going to put all the lines. We'll have 3 lines in Goodyear, and we said we're going to put them all in. So that was the big driver. Following up with BayWa and Inca as well helped really seal that deal. So for the most part, those 2 utility lines are spoken for the next 5 years.
Yeah, you got about 7 gigawatts locked up. I understand, something like that.
Yeah, just under. That's our kind of ring the bell moment right now. Is that we've got up to 6.7 gigawatts in.
That's a tremendous. I mean, what a tremendous testament to the team that you've built and the trust in the brand that's been built to be able to lock that in as you are building out your facilities. I mean, many of your peers are are announcing factories, and not at the scale that you guys are already locking up commitments. So congratulations on that. I'd like to take a slight turn in the conversation and talk more Ardes about you than Meyer Burger for a minute, if that's okay.
Sure.
You were born and raised in Texas.
That's right. Yeah. The great state of Texas.
The great state. Eventually, every Texan comes to terms with the fact that they have to be a United States citizen. And
sort of. Yes.
Tell me about tell me about your childhood. Your dad was in oil and gas. I mean, it put food on your table.
Yeah. That's the thing I like to tell people is that oil and gas has put food on my family's table for 4 generations, including mine, to be honest with you. And it's a thing in the state of Texas. You can be in West Texas and you can own an oil company, and it's like owning your own contractor business almost. And not every company is a Chevron in terms of that, right? We can have drillers that are, I don't want to use the words mom and pop shops, but my family, my wife's family as well, for sure. Many are still in the oil and gas industry. And it's interesting because people think synonymously of oil and gas being completely opposite of renewable energy. But in the sense of power generation, I think Texans get it. They understand. Mm-hmm. You see the adoption of of wind. We went from 0 to 12 gigawatts kind of thing. And, the market conditions were right. Instead of having one cow per 10 acres in the middle of the desert, you could have wind farms on there, and people understand that math, and they get it. So I have interesting conversations with the family, even still today. But to be honest with you, even the most diehard, the ones that are older than me, so to speak, I like to say, they're very interested and they get it. And it's no longer an if, it's a yes. So.
Wow. Yeah. And anybody who spends any time in Houston in any sort of networking capacity, or going to any of the events, Reuters or CERAWeek or otherwise, the energy transition is the lead conversation, not the 100%. Must also have kind of conversation, which 2 years ago when I was at CERA, it was almost like kicking and screaming. They knew it was kind of the last year they could pull it off without talking about the energy transition front and center.
Right. That was like, close the door. Let's talk about this. But in the open, they try to hide it. But yeah. No, I have tons of conversations with energy companies all the time about how they're going to get into the game, and we as a manufacturing technology, how do we work together and participate? So very interesting. Yeah. Were
you raised in a rather close-knit family? What was the fabric of that?
Yeah. I mean, for my immediate family was small. I have one brother, family, mom and dad, and both parents, of course, worked. And we were latchkey kids, or whatever you called it back in the 70s and 80s. But very, very tight, very supportive family. The kind of family that, allowed you to go out and do things and try, and failure was okay. Right. Yeah. So that's when that bleeds over. And then, of course, within my family, we have many, many more cousins and uncles. And we tend to, try to be in the same area. My family's home in West Texas. You look up and it's like greater families, like 50, 60 people come to Thanksgiving with.
That's right.
You got the county judge over there, you got the mayor over there. It's an interesting
dynamic
for sure.
Hey, I grew up in the South, and I know what that feels like. 17 grandkids, and now all the grandkids have kids, and it's a whole community thing.
Can make for a big adventure for a family reunion, but for sure.
It certainly does. Ardes, I feel like there's a distinct difference in households that have a military or a government service background. And I recall that there is a service background both generationally in your family. Can you talk about the influence of that on just the way that you came up in life?
Yeah, for sure. And you can go back to my grandparents, and I guess most people that look at that could say from World War II, they served there. But, for me, for that touch point, my father was a 2-tour Marine Corps veteran. Went to signed up during Vietnam as a Marine. Went over, came back after his tour duty, had some tragedies at home and family stuff. So, you can imagine a young 20-something-year-old man that's decides to on a spur to go back, and he went back and did it twice. And
Wow.
it's incredible because he was very stoic about those things, but and so very firm in the way that he had expectations.
Yeah.
But it was pretty easy because you didn't do those. Mistakes were okay. That wasn't what I'm talking about. But what I'm talking about is, do the right thing kind of attitude.
Yeah.
And everything's going to be okay. But you always knew, like I said, I think he had a different view on life in terms of enjoying the joy of being there. I think that was very hard for him. Lost a lot of friends, but he definitely, we didn't talk about it much, but it influenced me because more about what he cared about for me, but also drove me to think about what I was going to do with my future. It drove me to actually, when I left college, I joined the Navy. I spent 5 years in the Navy before I began my professional life, and that's had a profound influence on me, of course, for sure as well. And and then my oldest is in college now, and he talks about maybe one day going, which is a really odd thing. You think about 19, 20-year-olds, they're not talking about military, not most of them. And he's not dead set on it. I wouldn't say that, so for sure, but he's definitely sees that it gave me a lot of opportunity in life and positioned me in a way to understand stress and to value teamwork and to value each individual as well. That's a big part of it, the military for sure, and it definitely influenced me. And that's what I grew up in. I grew up in that environment where everyone was valued. Everyone had this, but there was a mission, right? And here's the mission. We all are on board. Everyone shakes their head yes, then we go. So that's how we do it.
Before we get into post-Navy, was there ever a career path that you always thought you'd go down? Never did?
The military for me was kind of a oops, just decided to kind of do it. I had an opportunity. They were going to pay me while I was still in college. So I don't want to tell people that I was excited about going into the military. I never really thought about it until my dad called me when I was a junior in college and said, "Hey, they've reached out to me. They want to talk to you." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I always thought that I would, at that time when I was getting, it's interesting because you think, what's your career path going to be? A lot of people want to do certain things when they grow up. A lot of people are influenced by the time in the industry. When I was graduating from college in those days, it was computer worlds were just getting started, right? Emails were just getting introduced in the early 90s. And that was something that I was very interested in. And I had some friends that were going out to California and they heard of these companies. I look back on some of this and I'm like, wow, what direction did I go? But, I tell you that I was an engineer by degree, but I always knew that that I was going to do something that was engaging and being with people. And when I went to the military, I was on an aircraft carrier, so you were with a lot of people all the time. And but that's what I always dreamed about at those days, is looking back, because I talked about internet. There's this thing that they were talking about, and I talked about email, and I had friends going out to this place called Silicon Valley, and going to go explore it and try it out. And that was that was something I look back and say, what if, so to speak. But life takes you where it goes. So
I could walk people through your experience and try to summarize it for you, but you've been in pretty much all facets of energy in your life. Your dad working in midstream oil and gas, you in the Navy, in fact, worked in energy. Could you talk about the influence of the different influences that pushed you into energy and how you began to develop early career around that skill?
Yeah, for sure. My job in the Navy was a nuclear surface warfare officer. And so essentially you ran a power plant and as well as drove the ship. You do all the above, but I got introduced to power generation at that moment. And it was fairly new, but it was an intense engagement to naval reactors, 500 plus megawatts reactors that are powering not only the electricity, but the steam and the thermal ability to drive the ship, the propulsion as well. I knew that I liked that industry. And so when I came out, there were opportunities to go somewhere different. Getting recruited, you go to recruiter events when you leave the military, transitioning junior officers do that. And I could go to pharmaceutical, or I could do this, or I could maybe go into a more application field engineering. And I had an opportunity to go get in a leadership program at GE. It was called the GE Junior Officer Leadership Program, JOLP. And it was pretty much designated to the energy group. The energy business there was at that time headquartered in Schenectady, New York. And I thought, I don't know about that. And then they flipped down to Atlanta, Georgia. And when that happened, I said, yes, I could do that. And I got out. I got into a program. Their expectation, I believe, was that I'd go run a power plant because that's what I did in the Navy.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, I was free labor, and you did 3 8-month rotations. So I did my first rotation. Everyone did this, what they called the quality role, the Six Sigma. Everyone was into that in those days, the master black belt roles. And we had to get that certification. But when my next rotation came up, I went to my rotation officer and I asked her, I said, do I have to go? Can I pick what I want? And she said, you can go wherever you want if someone will take you. So I started going into our career opportunity system, seeing jobs were open. I started smiling and dialing. I started looking at things that I would be interested in. And there was an opportunity to get into sales in Southern California. And I called the manager there and he said, well, you have no experience. You don't know how to do anything. And I told him, I'm free and I have a T&L card. And he said, come on. So
what's T&L?
A travel and living card. I had a credit card. I had the card. I could go and spend the money. It was paid for out of not their budget, so to speak.
Right.
So I went out to the West Coast. Went out at a very interesting time. It happened right. I was there right as the deregulation was happening. Enron was happening. The powers are spiking high. I was dealing with customers who wanted, GE, we were in the energy side. We made gas turbines, and steam turbines, and electrification equipment. But I was in the turbine business. I was in the power generation, thermal side of the business, power turbine business, and you could not. We had backlog for decades, so to speak, and very large customers, and people were trying to get power as fast as they could, and we were coming up with creative solutions to do some sort of rental agreements with different types of more mobile technology. And mobile's a kind of a, not really an accurate word because you have to hook up gas lines and everything, but you weren't building the infrastructure of a plant. I get out there and 3 months later, everything collapses. So I spent the next few months working through some contracts. And I don't know if you've ever seen a General Electric contract, but it's pretty rock solid for General Electric, especially when the customer needed something. So that's some massive utilities that looked us right in the eyes and said, I'll pay you these liquidated damages, but I'll never buy anything from you again. You can imagine that was trial by fire for me. Junior guy, not knowing anything, just out of
it's your job to negotiate the outs on these contracts.
Yeah. I was essentially the fodder that they were, hey, get in there, man, and good luck. But to be honest with you, I excelled in that because it's about engaging with individuals, getting past the emotion, finding a mutual agreement, coming to an understanding, recognizing what the long-term implications are, and reacting to that. And I'm telling you, I was put there mysteriously, but for a reason. It's exactly how you are in the Navy, right? And in the Navy, you can be in some really high stress situations, but you're driving a multi-billion-dollar aircraft carrier. You've got to be able to react. And I was the officer of the deck so I was on the deck a lot, driving the ship, or the team was driving the ship.
Wow.
So that gave me a lot of natural ability, not unnatural ability, but I was comfortable in that situation. So worked through that, and then then went through a couple more rotations. And to be honest with you, I never left sales after that. They wanted me to be engineer, go run a plant, but I always felt, from my perspective, I felt like, you put on that coat, it felt comfortable,
Yeah. I talk a lot about how folks try to skip to the end and they don't learn the fundamentals. One of the ways, and so I say, look, you could go work for any startup you want, but if you want to add value to a startup, go work for Clorox or Procter & Gamble or GE. Get in rotation in their management training programs. Go work for Google or Amazon or Apple. Learn what a real corporation looks like. You want to be in the power sector, go work for a utility. Yeah. Go work for an IPP. Yeah. A major one. Go get a job at Brookfield. Go get a job at TransCanada, right? Learn what the gas industry looks like. What do you feel is missing in that regard that you probably learned as an engineer and a sales director at a company like GE, where you really got to understand how the power sector works? Like, what advice would you give folks that are considering a job in clean energy coming out of some other sector, or maybe coming out of school?
Yeah, for sure. To understand that, what I like to tell people is eventually our industry is going to catch up and act like more traditional energy in terms of how you engage it, how it is sourced, how it is managed. And we have an environment where it is a 40-year startup, so to speak. That is the solar industry. And it's unfortunate because we've not allowed ourselves to really establish that rigor that you get in other industries. The issues that I feel that we are having, you just don't see on the turbine side of the business. You don't see it in other parts of critical pieces of equipment for our infrastructure, right? That's the one thing I really like about energy, is because it touches all of our lives. There's no one in the world that doesn't understand energy in the sense that I have electricity, I have power, I have lights, I have everything. And so maybe not knowing how it works necessarily, but it's not something foreign to them. That what is energy? You'll never hear anyone ask that question. But for people, especially if they've kind of grown up, started off maybe at an installer and has moved their way through that's more of the contractor world, and it's a critical piece of it. It's an important piece of it. But for us, we look at it, if you're coming to us as a manufacturer, think about this. We have got to get in a place where things become more normalized in how we approach not only the development stage, but the procurement stage and everything else. And people don't recognize that. And just the fundamentals, like you said earlier, I brought a lot from GE that you don't even know you bring. Right? You have no idea that it's a critical, important piece and how it works from a functionality, from a process perspective. And
how many black belts are there in Six Sigma in the solar industry? A lot more now, but
not a lot of that going on. But I think part of that is going to be required for us to be able to have a stable industry. We're going to have a stable industry in order for us to allow us to grow, put the roots in that get those things. Yeah, we've got some science experts that know how to make tools and know how to make these technology. So the actual pieces and parts are one thing, but just the mechanics from the time it's made to the time you recycle it 25 years later, how does that all work? And how do we make it normal? And that's where we lose people. People come in and then it's gone, and then they're up and then it's gone again. And we've just been taking a beating, and it's hard for me to go out. I think I should go get a quality person that's outside of even obviously we have QA, QC quality people on the line, but I'm talking about organizationally speaking. I don't know if anybody's going to come work in QA quality in our world when they don't know, they don't feel confident. It's not as stable as a GE. And the truth of the matter is, you look at GE, they had to restructure and reorganize themselves. I arrived at General Electric right in September of 2000, and the stock split 3-for-1, went to $68 at that point. So it was worth 180 at that. It was the best of times. And then for the 10 years that I was there, it was all down. But big companies can restructure, they can relook, and they're doing a great job now.
Let me ask you a sort of an inverse question.
Yeah.
What would people in oil and gas, your dad's friends, your uncles and cousins, be most surprised about in their transition to work for a solar company or a battery storage company?
Yeah. I would think they would be as shocked because they're not really paying attention. They're shocked that how the math really works. That actually that it's a stable part of what I'd call, as the President George W. Bush would say, all the above mix, right? Kind of attitude. They haven't really believed it. And now they're seeing it for the first time from a different lens. And they would, when I explain it the way I explain it to them, everyone I know gets excited about it because they know that it's no different than West Texas and air conditioning. No air conditioning, no West Texas, right? That's what I tell people. But I tell them it's like TVs and air conditioning, solar panels at the homeowner level or the facility level is going to be a thing that in 15, 20 years, people are like, well, of course you have solar. It's part of the integrated solution of a home and of a business. So, there's a shared pain when it comes to oil and gas in terms of the ups and downs of the value of a West Texas crude, which is the driver for all oil prices, as far as I know, globally. But it is something that people recognize that there needs to be more diversity in the supply of energy, and now they realize that, oh, you're not taking my job, right? I mean, maybe someday, but not anytime soon, right? We have a long way to go in order to transform our whole industry, the vehicle industry, the home industry, the business industry. There's a long way to go that oil and gas is going to have some legs, but it still needs as much solar as we can produce. I don't even think 40 gigawatts is enough a year is what we're going to need. So that's interesting.
Did you know what you were getting into when you were recruited to be the vice president of sales at SolarWorld?
No.
At the time that you were being recruited?
I will tell you, over time, you get a lot of recruiters, headhunters. They'll contact you and reach out to you, and I wasn't definitely not actively looking for a role to leave, and recruiter hit me up and talked to me about this company, SolarWorld, and sent me some information. I read a little bit of the information. It was more internal marketing about the company, and I didn't really do any external research about what was going on at the time around 2011 and 12 and 13 in terms of the industry and SolarWorld's position within that. And quite frankly, I just wanted to go to LA for a weekend and hang out. So I said, yeah, I'll come interview. I'm being dead honest with you. And I tell people this too, I flew into SolarWorld and the HR manager, he brought me in and said, of course, all of our history and everything that's going on and how critical we are to the solar. And I was like, I had no idea what he was talking about. So I interviewed there, left, and thought, okay, that was cool. And then I got reached. Then Germany wanted to. SolarWorld was a German-based company as well, right? And they wanted to interview me, and I killed it. The interview. I mean, I nailed it. But we had third-party people coming in, doing scenarios with me, doing all kinds of things. And everything they were trying to do to me was something that I naturally did on a day-to-day basis. I didn't really even prepare at all for it. In fact, they came to me during my in-between sessions and I was on my phone working. I was doing things and they were like, oh, you should be studying for this next prep session. And I said, I got this one. Because quite frankly, I dealt, when I was at GE, we had international manufacturing, we had international businesses. I dealt with, I had to go to Mexico, I had to go to Europe. And there's the language barriers, there's the cultural barriers. Those are things you have to overcome. And I knew this, I recognized those. And it was something that I was naturally ingrained with, not because I'm somebody special, just because that's what you did.
It's trained.
Yeah. You got trained to do it and learned about it. So then I took that job and then I was thrown into the mix big time.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting time. SolarWorld, I could see where we were. We had a great team of leaders, great manufacturing, great story. It's just a very tough time.
Yeah. So at the time, connect the dots between joining SolarWorld in just outside Portland and getting to know the Meyer Burger team.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, the dots are really close there for a few of us. The Meyer Burger team, many of them have some history at SolarWorld. And in fact, when I took the job at SolarWorld, we had an organizational, the commercial organization was down in Camarillo, LA area. And that's where I interviewed, by the way. And the factory was just getting built up in Oregon. And leading that charge up there was a guy named Gunther Erfurt, who was in Oregon. I was with the company for about 2 or 3 months when they came in and said, we're reorganizing, we're shutting down Camarillo. You now run every part of that organization instead of just the sales. I had everything. And we're relocating to Oregon. I had told them I wasn't going to leave Dallas to come to LA, but they were like, would you be on board with going there? And it was crazy because not everybody was asked to come up there, but it was really tough for me to ask people to move. and me not being willing to do it. So it took a lot of time, talked to, my wife, and we made the decision to do it. It was interesting. We went up there, and this is how I'm going to tell you how I see it. I was waiting for school to get out. It's important to kind of give you this little background here. I was waiting for school to get out to move my family, but I started around November timeframe. We did this transition, and I'll be honest with you. I think they were giving us 6 months. They were kind of checking the boxes.
Oh, wow.
And we got in, we were essentially a new leadership team. They had 2 presidents before, both presidents exited, and Mukesh Dulani was the vice president of operations, and he became the president. I became the vice president of commercial team, and we were in a room with our leadership team, and man, we spent a lot of time together. And I was there, like I wouldn't even go home on weekends, so I would be there for 2 weeks and then go home for a few days, and there for 2 weeks, and
this is with kids in there, like in the
kids, right. And
you had 4 kids in the like the 8 to 12 time frame, I guess.
Yes, that's right. Yep. That's exactly right. When I moved to Portland, I came home and told her, my wife, she told me at the same time she was pregnant with our 4th. So that was a very, there were some tears shed at that point, but we've thrived from it. I'll tell you that. We had a great experience in Portland. We have lifelong friends from living up there, but it took that leadership team, Mukesh and, Gary Starr was our procurement leader, and these guys have gone on and done great things even outside of the industry. Steve Petchis was our vice president of operations, and Sally Gillig was our HR manager. I only say those names because I had a lot of respect for those people. We spent a lot of time together, and it took them, we believed when Germany, I'll be honest with you, they did not believe. And we went from about 50 megawatts and grew the heck out of that business. And at the same time, we were fighting some trade cases here and there too.
Just a few.
Yeah.
I think that as there are ups, there are a lot of downs in careers. You walked into a firestorm at SolarWorld and managed it admirably. And I think that the career trajectory for folks, you learn as much about the things that go sideways as the things that go up. I've personally worked for a few companies that have gone under and have gotten my 3rd, 4th, 5th MBAs in the real world, the School of Hard Knocks.
Yep.
There's a lot we could talk about in the transition between SolarWorld and Meyer Burger. You worked at Tesla, JLM, Baker Hughes, kind of going back to a GE company and back to oil and gas for a bit. Yeah. The one that stands out to me though, and I know you got a ton of other stories, is JLM. You talked early about Sanyo being a company that was ahead of its time. What can you tell me about what you learned in the 3 years at JLM, where you kind of left at the pinnacle of your career and went to a startup, which is what I advise people to do, is get it as much as you can before you go to a startup so you can add as much value as possible.
Yeah. Well, I had hoped that Fareed, the guy
we had Fareed on the show. Yeah.
Fareed would say that I brought some of that insight to him. We go way back, and at the end of the day, I left SolarWorld. I got recruited away to go to Tesla, and that's important for the JLM story. And I avoided it for a long time, to be honest. Get over there, and the whole world's trying to get there and wanted to work for this company, and it took them literally 6 months to convince me to say yes. Sort of. I'm not trying to say that I was the guy, but it took 6 months for us to come to get, yes, I'm willing to do this. And I went over there, had a ton of success, but some of the things that we were doing weren't aligned with how I saw it. And so ended up leaving, and I just want to take a pause. I'm kind of, don't know what I'm going to do. I'm living at this point in Reno, Nevada, and I had a friend of mine said, "Hey, you should go visit with Fareed, and he's got a pretty interesting concept with storage." And that was the phaser idea. They're looking at the energy management was really the driver, but really looking at the panel level stuff. So I went over there, and Fareed and I
panel level storage. So that people
storage. Sorry about that. Yeah. Panel level storage. And it's very interesting concept. Very interesting how that, and I was going for the startup worlds, right? And we kind of structured things. If you hit the home run, you hit the home run. if you don't, you don't. And we were there. It's just you get those MBAs, hard knock MBAs, as you said, and it just didn't have enough gas to get to the top of the hill. Is like what I like to say.
Cash flow from perspective of having cash in the bank. I'm curious, as someone who had seen, what success looks like, what it was that got you excited about JLM, and that you saw from sort of a pattern matching perspective, like, okay, this looks like if XYZ line up, this could really work, and why? What
I'll tell you is what I saw at JLM was not something dissimilar that I saw when I was in the solar industry. We had traditional installers, very established amount of solar installers in the industry. Along comes a company that provides an AC type of interaction. So what Enphase in the microinverter world allowed to happen was it increased the number of installers drastically. The cost was a little different and the mechanics were a little different, but what it made was ease of use. The expertise required was a lot less. And what I saw at JLM was that similar thing going to happen in energy storage. Being at Tesla, looking at the Powerwall, I was there, Powerwall 1, Powerwall 2 kind of was coming. And, at the end of the day, the piece of equipment is A, but the installation was 2A, or, it's pretty hard. And so the phaser technology that JLM had was interesting because I believe that it did the same type of approach. It made application of installation of energy storage. It made it to where it was something that could be segmented. You didn't have to put one huge box in. You could put more in over time.
Distributed,
Which Enphase, I think, saw that a little bit, as well as the fact that it just made it to where you did not have to be a storage electrical expert to install this product. It was plug and play. No different than the microinverter. Yeah,
I mean, I love that explanation, and few have tried. Yada and SolPad are definitely bringing innovation to that sector. But since JLM, which was really a pioneer in rooftop storage, I saw what you saw. When I interviewed Fareed at SPI, I think like 2017, I was stunned at the correlation, right? When we all saw Enphase come out, I was like, wait, I can take Romex off the roof. I can take AC power. Anybody can install this. Right. You don't even need you hardly even need training. And like right now, even today, 2023, you need an electrical engineering degree to put an energy storage system together.
Yeah. No, it's what even was so attractive to me is like it was literally plug and play software communication, turn on and engaging. So I had a huge affinity for that. And also the trees that were cut down by the likes of an Enphase in terms of, well, what about being on the roof and the temperature and the
right
here and this?
They already addressed a lot of that.
It's like, guys, look, we were able to do it with the microinverter. It's a microinverter with some essentially with some batteries in there that are used to the kind of temperatures. And I told people, you're more concerned about the cold than you are the hot. But needless to say, that was something that you could overcome because someone else had already kind of shown that it could be overcome. Essentially, Enphase at that time was also in a position that was very interesting, and they've exploded out of that. But I had some pretty interesting conversations with them over time, and the stock was less than $1. So.
Yeah, boy, they've turned that company around.
Yeah.
It's clear to me from the description of how you have sort of cultivated leadership skills and abilities that you have and the opportunities you were given, why you made a logical choice for Meyer Burger to bring you in, run the Americas team, help stand up manufacturing here. Now that you're in that captain's chair, building that team and sort of doing it it's almost like an entrepreneurial venture for you here. What do you find is the most common question that comes to mind or gets asked either about the product or the company, and how do you answer it?
Well, I would say that the most common theme is around, are you going to make it, right? Are not necessarily even Meyer Burger per se, but really, can someone else do this, be in this industry, right? A European company, a US footprint type of company. And I often answer the question that nothing comes without risk in life, and you've got to go for it, but you've got to believe in the mission and what you're doing. And not only do I believe in it, but the leadership team in Europe, they believe in it. The executive board, they believe in it. So the reality is it's an easy conversation to say, we think we can, we're going for it. Here in the US, I like to think of that we approach it from almost a ready, fire, aim, course correct approach, where we're going to try things out. We're going to try to put ourselves in a position to be successful. And if it's not the way we're going to be successful, we're not going to ride it out to the end. We're going to adjust. And Europe is responding accordingly to support us on that. Super excited about that. Goes all the way down to our cell plant where we're going to do it. We went from idea to production is going to be in 18 months, which is unheard of. And that's a testament to Meyer Burger's ability to pivot. And that's what's critical. How can you survive in this business? You got to be a technology leader, and you've got to be able to pivot. You cannot, lock yourself into a dying technology. And that's why I believe that Meyer Burger has got the ability to do it. That's what I tell people, and people buy into it. And you show the history, you show the ability, you show the desire to be successful. The only thing we do, we get up, we eat, drink, sleep, everything that we do in life is around the solar module, the solar cell technology.
Yeah.
We're not spending the time in the ecosystem around that right now. We think that there's so much room to get to that 30% module that we see the vision to, with between IBC, then perovskite tandem modules, which we're heavily engaged with in those technologies. So that's another reason. Technology leadership, desire, it's all we do. And quite frankly, the ability to adjust as needed.
What can you tell me about the leadership team? In particular, I know that the CEO is the CTO, for example, of the company. What do you admire? What have you learned joining this team?
Yeah. So, I was going back to the story of the SolarWorld days. When I was up there spending those hours and days and weeks there was an individual that was also there that I didn't know, but we would end up at the same restaurants because he was living there solo without his family. And it was Gunter. And Gunter and I, at that time, he was transitioning. And European companies, you don't transition overnight, you transition over a little bit of time. But he was transitioning to Meyer Burger from SolarWorld. And we spent a lot of time talking and having kind of philosophical conversations, right? Never knowing that we would be in this situation where we are today. But we always centered at that time, it was mono-PERC, and mono-PERC wasn't the standard technology, but it was the next technology, relatively speaking, in those days. And there was a lot of argument even within SolarWorld whether or not they should focus on it. We were both of the same opinion. So what's important about that is to understand that I know his mindset, our newest mindset, when this whole transition happened. When he went to Meyer Burger, he was the CTO there. That was his only title. Well, not his only, but that's what his title was, a CTO. And then he became the CEO, but he's still holding the reins of CTO. But he has a very commercial mindset as well, and he's got super amount of knowledge, but he's also got business sense. So he and the team, and Daniel Menzel, our chief operating officer, who was also at SolarWorld in a different role, but he was there at SolarWorld. We have a very open and great relationship, and that's what I love about the leadership team. And they're willing to be very frank with me, but at the same time, very open with me and hear my ideas, and not my ideas, but the US's ideas, so to speak. It's not just me. There's a team of people here that are engaging on that. And that's what I love about it.
Is there anything, you mentioned perovskite and tandem, is there anything, what's on the horizon that you guys are looking out to beyond where the market's at now?
Yeah. So the market now, for us is, we're focusing on the heterojunction, and I'd say today is how do we get in line with where we need to be? We believe it's the best technology. There's PERC, there's the traditional IBC, there's some power modules. TopCon is starting to come on. There's some things out there, and there's also globally there's a few heterojunction players out there, a little bit different, but heterojunction is in the industry. our focus right now is to normalize on a little bit bigger wafer. That's how the modules have been getting more power. They've been making them bigger, but we really are excited about that. We'll have that done next year. So that's the now term. I think that there's going to be the IBC and then potentially the IBC bifacial that's going to come from us. Not sure if it's going to be in every different vertical that we have, but we see a pretty good runway on the current HJT technology that we can continue to advance to get a little bit more out of it versus the other guys and then the other types of technologies. Then we can go from there. And of course, the IBC technologies that we're working with, we've engaged in Switzerland and in Germany with to develop these technologies. We have a history in developing these technologies, especially when we're the tool manufacturer. Very knowledgeable about the tandem, different terminal types, and the tandem technologies. I'm excited about that. I think that is something that has been 5 years out for the past 10 years. Every year it's 5 years out, right? Kind of attitude. But I think we're actually in that kind of 5 to 7 year horizon for that. I know that I think we should be able to move with the years here eventually on efficiency all the way up to 2030, get to the 30. I think that's got to be capability. And what we're excited is Heterojunction is, like we said, we feel it's naturally aligned with combining those technologies. So,
yeah. And you guys are invested in or part owner in a perovskite facility as well. Is that right?
We do have some ownership in a company, Oxford PV. It's 29% ownership, so we're still there. But we've definitely been looking at. Right now we're working really strong. We announced not too long ago that we had some cooperation agreements with a few companies in Switzerland and Germany, and obviously the Fraunhofer Institute. And the great thing about what we're doing there is everything that we're developing with those three will be for us and what we can use, and it'll be kind of a proprietary thing there. Oxford PV is a developer, and they're a big believer in not only perovskite, of course, but heterojunction is the key technology to combine for perovskite type modules. So they speak for us. Yeah. So if you hear them speak, they'll talk about that.
Is there anything that particularly differentiates or distinguishes the company culture that you are building, or do you feel like makes your team stand out?
Yeah, I think that for me, culturally speaking, I come from a world where opportunities are given, maybe not deserved, but opportunities are given. And I look for people I would take advantage of those opportunities were given to me when I didn't deserve them. You go into it. So I like to put people outside of their comfort zone and give them opportunities to stretch themselves. At the same time, it's almost an expectation that we do that. And that's the culture that we're building because it's the course correct capability. It goes all the way back to my childhood. And mistakes were something that you learned on and you pivoted, right? That's got to be able to pivot. You got to be able to feel that you can take a leap and someone's there to catch you. I definitely put people in these positions that are working with me on the commercial side of the organization, which is really what I'm focused on right now. We've built out a really robust sales team. We started a year ago. This time we had one salesperson. Now we've got 10 salespeople we're adding. It's having an impact. I put some leaders in on sales. I got Aaron Clark, who's an industry veteran. He's running sales right now for us in the sales team. Michelle, obviously, she does an incredible job on the marketing team for us, and she comes from the industry as well. But I'll be honest with you, part of our success is also that we're diversifying, and we've got people who are not from the industry that have started, and we've got people who are not even have a ton of experience that we've started, and they're doing a great job. And I like to tell them they're not all caught, they're not guys like us or can be jaded somewhat. It's new, it's fresh to them, and I tell people there's an environment of people wanting to come to this industry. And so I only tell this not only to myself, but to my colleagues out there that it works because you have to believe and you have to give them chances. You have to educate them, but you also have to make them know that you don't need to know everything about heterojunction overnight, right? Do you have empathy for the customer? Are you available to talk to them? Are you willing to support them? Are you going to stand up and say what you believe, even though what you believe may be wrong, and be willing to be told that, hey, that's incorrect, but let's fix it, right?
Be humble about it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm as macro manager as you can get to be honest with you. Sometimes it's even a downfall from my side. I'm definitely not a micromanager, but I look at people and, if you've interviewed them, if you spend time with them, I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. I know that any one of us can do it. Everything's hard in life. We need support. That's what we need right now. We need to support each other. So our team should feel that way, that they've got the support they need, that they've got the ability to make some mistakes, and we've got some expectations that we're holding them to. And but we're a big team. And on the operational side of the business, Walter Giesler's running operations for us. He's he's an industry veteran. He's leading that up, and I only bring that up to say that it's very critical because we're hiring industry veterans for our operations and our production side, both in the module and in the cell. It's not a given that we'll get them. It's going to be very competitive as more people come online, but it's our job to be an employer of choice.
Well, Ardes, I wish that I could spend another hour with you. Candidly, there's so many questions left on the table. As I turn towards home base, though, I always want to dig in and kind of get inside the mind of how you look at personal development. I'm curious, A, what do you nerd out about? And then B, what sort of what books or resources have you recommended the most that have meant a lot to you in terms of your formation?
To be honest, I kind of nerd out to the numbers a little bit from the engineering days, and just the eye-opening experience of actually going to getting my MBA. And when you're an engineering guy or a salesperson, it's definitely different in finance and valuation of companies and decisions that are made. So I typically love to look at the data and dig into it. I'm an Excel spreadsheet geek when it comes to that as well, doing all kinds of valuations in that and spending hours with the team on that. So I think it's critical for us to do those kind of things because it puts into perspective the if-then statements. Well, what if we did this? What would the impact be?
Right.
What's the decision for this? Why did we decide to not do that? Well, it saved us X. Well, because it saved us X, we're not able to do Y. And was the amount of due diligence and rigor put into that to evaluate that? I've learned that from my world is that you have a knack to want to make it either a judgment or an answer or a call. And I'm that way. I will give you an answer immediately, right? But it takes time for you to kind of pause, reset, reevaluate, and come back with something. So I've learned that over time, and I teach that to my kids because I see them. It's like, you came at that with the most confident approach. That was a great answer. Completely wrong, but a great answer.
Love your confidence.
And so that's what I do to encourage them to evaluate what you did, go back and do some analysis. I mean, that's the great part about it is we have so much analytics and capability and information that's available to us. None of it's ever perfect, right? No information is ever perfect. But how do you put it in the mindset that you're starting to trend to the decisions that you want to make and the technologies you want to do? And so for me, I think that's something that I really enjoy. And I feel that I have an affinity towards that and try to do the calculator in my head. But as you get older, it gets a little bit more cloudy.
Well, hopefully, if somebody's listening to this in anticipation of an interview at Meyer Burger, they're going to now come with another tool in their quiver to know they need to be data oriented, data focused. Right. Very good. Is there a book or two that you'd recommend that have meant a lot to you?
I was just reading the Friedman's books. I read that about, what is this about? Was it 10 years, 12 years ago, 15, maybe something like that. And I picked it up the other day. I was kind of bored and I was kind of reading through that. I said, oh, man, I want my kids to read this. This is crazy.
Yeah. It's ahead of its time.
What's that?
It's ahead of its time.
Yeah, it was ahead of its time, right? And so I think that anything that you can get your hands on around people who are viewing what's going on today in terms of how our Earth is reacting to us living on it is a critical piece of information in a way that we walk. And I tell my kids this, growing up in West Texas, it's a political hot rod or lightning rod, I should say, political lightning rod when you're talking about. It can be a hot rod as well, but for solar. But the truth of the matter is, we have impact, and how can we do things better and take it out of the Twitter sphere and just really do that. And so that's the book that I've started to pick up and started to read again. And I'm gonna go through it. I'll probably finish it really fast, but I enjoy those kind of books. And of course, the sales training books are always great. But it's like
is there a sales training book that stands out for you?
No, I mean I could give you guys a couple. I had a customer of mine just give us this book called The Infinite Game, and I'm starting to look at that
The
now.
Infinite Game is so good.
Yes, and I'm like, wow, it's incredible.
The other one that I recommend is
Dawn to Dusk.
The Little Red Book of Sales by Jeffrey Gitomer, fellow in North Carolina.
You like that one, huh? Yeah. That's a classic, man.
You know, anybody that's on the front line, like you gotta
tip of the spear.
It gives you something. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it gives you something to. I mean, it's something to think about. How do I respond?
Yeah, in
different environments, different situations. Yeah.
No, being able to respond and react, and that's what's it about. The whole. How many times you have to ask them? Well, guess what? They're going to say no different every single time. So you've got to be able to react as it is. But it's the best thing to get is experience.
As I said, I could spend hours with you, but we don't have it. If folks who have spent this much time with us would like to find more about you or get connected with you, where do you like to be found? Is there a particular place that's more prevalent than others?
I mean, for me, just from the nature of the beast, if you were trying to reach out to me and you don't have my contact, just hit me up on LinkedIn. I tend to respond to that pretty regularly. I used to be really bad at it, but it's coming in hot and heavy lately. So I'm starting to go into that a little bit more. And I think you can reach out to us at the business. But I tell people whenever, I don't know if I want to throw it out here on the podcast, but if you've got my contact, reach out to me anytime you want. I like to react.
I've got his contact. You can reach out to me.
That's right. Yeah. But we're hiring people. We're growing. We got Goodyear, we got Colorado Springs, and what's the website? MeyerBurger.com. It'll drop you down into the US. MEYERBURGER. Yes. We'll link to it, of course, in the show notes. Well, let's wrap, Ardes, with a final question here to leave folks tantalized. We often call it a bold prediction, but if you look out to the critical path of getting the decarbonization goals we have through 2030, 2050 resolved, what if we look back from there and we succeeded, what did we get right? What did we unlock? We decided that every country has to participate, not only from the way that you live, but more myopically, and where I'm focused on solar production and manufacturing. We're making our first steps in something that's very new of how we approach the solar industry, at least in the US, with the Inflation Reduction Act and the opportunity here. Billions will be invested from the government, but billions and billions and multipliers of billions will be invested by the community, the businesses out there to help support that, make it happen. If we get it right, we kind of put down the debate, put down the political aisle, move away from that, and just recognize that this is best for us for whatever reason. And I can go to DC and I can talk on both sides of the aisle for a reason why we need this, and they both shake their head yes. And it's an opportunity for us to do this now. But more importantly, and I've said a lot there, for one quick answer, stability. We have to have stability. Manufacturers, billion-dollar investments in this country won't happen without no stability. So it takes all of us to think what that needs to do and what needs to happen for that to occur. And we can't do it alone in the US. We need colleagues from globally everywhere to be able to get there, but we need stability.
Ardes Johnson is president and general manager of Meyer Burger Americas. Ardes, it's always a pleasure. I learn so much when I get a chance to chat with you. I hope it isn't too long before I get another opportunity.
Thanks, Nico. Appreciate it.
What a story. Ardes Johnson, not just because you're a Johnson, but because you are such a professional. I tip my hat to you, sir. Thank you for taking time to be here with us. Oh, and by the way, thank you. Thank you for taking time to be here all the way through this interview with Ardes and I. This was so insightful. I love all the lessons learned from Ardes, especially the reality that our careers do sometimes take a turn down an alley that doesn't lead back to a main road, or at least not obviously. Ardes, I think that you are an example of how to build skills and stack experience no matter what role you are in. I do actually believe that the time you spent tinkering around with the sales model for rooftop battery storage is not lost time. It was interesting and insightful look at how the industry will evolve. In fact, we've already got examples following in those footsteps, and the relationships that you've forged and the expansion that you're able to share with understanding how battery storage works ties to your ability as a leader to see around corners for one of the most consequential module manufacturing companies in existence today. How about, did you learn anything about the way that modules are manufactured? Did you know that Meyer Burger existed before this episode? If you did, congratulations. If you didn't, I'm glad to have been able to help pull back the veil for you as I promised in the outset. And I'd appreciate it if you would jump over to LinkedIn and thank Ardes for sharing in the way that he did. I thank you once more. If you want to learn more about Ardes, the recommendations, and the research that we did before the episode to get ready for it, or the links to connect with him on social media, you can find all of those both in the description as well as on the episode notes page at mysuncast.com. And hey, while you're there, click on that sponsor page and show some love to the folks that help bring this show to you each and every week. All you have to do is pay attention. Give us a little of your time. They take care of the rest. Thank you so much to our sponsors. We are eternally grateful to you and help keep the Suncast team fed and clothed during this winter season and heading into a happy holiday time of year. And thank you, listeners. Thank you, viewers, for taking time out of your busy schedule. I wish you happy holidays. And I want to say, if you have not already subscribed and smashed the like button on the platform that you're in, please do that so that others can see it and learn in the same way that you have, and so that we can have a Merry Christmas here at Suncast by bringing more folks into the fold. Remember, you are what you listen to. Thanks again for showing up, Solar Warrior. It's half the battle.